Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
This is your captain, John Reagan, sitting in for Vincent this week, and a little bit of next week as well. I got a call over the weekend, and it's one of those, hey, John, and I know right there what's coming next. Yeah, it's never ending when you have a farm and winter's coming and there's things that just have to be done. So I'm sitting in while he takes care of a long list of things. And I also wanted to share that there's some gun shows coming up this weekend. You can find the list at rkshows.com. There's 4 coming up the 29th, Louisville, Knoxville, Colorado Springs, and Lawrenceville, Georgia. And the way things are lining up right now, I'm going to have a little bit of discussion coming up about Louisville on Tuesday. Apparently, they are getting real big into the smart city paradigm. And very frightening what's coming there. Of course, you know, the cheerleaders think it's all great. They're going to be able to offer better services. They just apparently don't understand it's all about surveillance and control. Well, today we have with us Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and it's going to be an interesting show. Rick, you sent me some very detailed notes right before the show, and I know it's going to be way too much for people to copy down, so what I did is I posted the notes to my website, the financialstateoftheunion.com, on the news tab. So there's a couple of ways of getting there. One is through Vincent's website, usaprepares.com, going to the instructors tab and scrolling down the financial section and clicking on my website there. I've also got a new website, eze33.org. That's short for Ezekiel 33. And if you go there, you can click the news tab, which will take you back to the Financial State of the Union news tab. And I think you're going to find today's show, very sobering and disturbing. Rick, did you want to say anything before I get started on the notes you gave me?
Where should I begin? Everybody knows that the two candidates are claiming that the elections are rigged. Now, what does that mean, rigged? I have made a discovery of exactly what it means, and I've written a small white paper that I sent to you with some links of support based on a new book that I'll let you introduce and the author and so on, website so that they can read the book regarding artificial intelligence and how gerrymandering now works in the 21st century. The concept of Jade Helm and the use of profiling began with Jade 2.0 software that has now evolved into the high end of D-Wave technology. And you can look up D-Wave on WikiLeaks. It is a 16-qubit form of an artificial intelligence computer that is being manufactured so inexpensively that now almost, several thousands of people have them. And at this moment, several of those computers have gone rogue. That means they are no longer being managed by handlers or human beings. They're out there on the internet running full amok as a sovereign entity with more intelligence than man. Now, what's occurred has been the use of this profiling software to rearrange districts for voter control. And this book outlines it, and what I did is a summary of the book and then a projection into the next level with a list of who has already used this software on us in control of who is a Democrat, who is a Republican, and how the voting goes. You'll notice that if most of you that are listening to me right now are not for either Hillary or Donald Trump, you might vote for one over the other as a vote against one of the two, but to my knowledge, none of us, well, me certainly, would not want to support either of them. What we need is someone like Pinocchio, so that at least when they're lying, we can tell. This has gone beyond anything. And, John, rather than me go any further, why don't you read some of the opening lines here so that everybody gets a full Monty? And by the way, this has been posted on Facebook at docram.com.
Okay. So you've got two sources there for getting to the information. And let me just share a programming note before we get started. Tomorrow, I've got John Robertson on for both hours. This guy was at Hear the Watchman Dallas and has been on with Doug and Joe Hagman. And he was a longtime Hollywood, employed person. And he discovered a lot of things about Hollywood that the general public doesn't know. And of course, Hollywood's big into the propaganda, mind control stuff. And he's going to talk about the satanic connections to Hollywood that most people don't even know about. And then, leading up to Halloween, and then on Halloween Monday, we have Anthony Patch going to be talking about revising reality, which gets into, again, the D-Wave supercomputers. He also gets into the connection to CERN as well. So, it's like from today through Monday, it's going to be one blockbuster after another. Don't miss it. And the archives are always available on gcnlive.com. Well, the book that Doc Ram is talking about, the first word is censored a bit, even on Amazon. Rat effed the true story behind the secret plan to steal America's democracy. The author is David Daley, D-A-L-E-Y, and it's nearly a 300-page book. The summary: we don't need Jade Helm and supercomputers to threaten our country and its form of government. All we need are clever political operatives and lots of dark money and the willingness to use it ruthlessly. What happened came from the right. They saw the opportunity first. It could have equally come from the left if they had seen the opportunity first. The larger question is how else information technology can be used to adversely affect our lives and out of our political, social, and economic freedoms. We've talked about big data, data mining, and its use is not unique to Jade Helm. The ability to identify groups of individuals by race, ethnicity, income, buying patterns, and voting behavior as well as a whole host of other data points, are readily available from public and for hire databases, and to any user who has the need and ability to process the information by asking the right question and buying the right software. And as I said earlier, I'll be talking Tuesday about what Louisville's doing with the smart city. Think about overlaying real-time intelligence gathering on top of all of this. Of course, all managed by an artificial intelligence, because there's just too much data for humans to be able to collate and understand. Once a province of supercomputers owned and operated by governments, research facilities, and large corporations, there is now software that can be used to mine data using a PC that runs about $10,000 or less a copy. Maptitude can mine data and identify behavior patterns with many variables with a resolution of 1 city block or less. If you drill down to it, you'll find that the application is touted to have the ability to create a map for just about any application. And the links for those are provided in the notes here. A second example, a powerful application of the software was used to create a guaranteed Republican majority firewall in the U.S. House of Representatives that will last at least until 2022 and quite possibly 2032, according to the author. The access to the rich troves of data, coupled with the unbelievably inexpensive and powerful analytical software, allowed political operatives to create safe districts in enough states to create a guaranteed Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. The program was called RedMap and began with the targeting of key legislators in states that had certain prerequisites that would allow Republican control of the redistricting process that occurs every federal census. This process worked beyond the operatives' wildest dreams and will continue on after we get back from this break. This is John Reagan at the controls today. And before we get back to the notes, I just want to make a little side trip. As you know, I spent the last 2.5 years of my Air Force career at the Pentagon. And when you're in that D.C. environment, what happens in D.C. is local news, not national news. And I was observing, Congress, practically up close and personal. And I saw where the Republicans were violating their oath of office, the same one that I took to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And of course, the Democrats were even worse. And back in those days, both sides of the aisle, they were practically Boy Scouts compared to what we have today. And that was very tough on me, being a captain in the basement of the Pentagon. There's really nothing I could do about that. And it's only been the last few years, and thanks to Vincent, allowing me on this platform, that I've been able to get some of that information out. What's been going on has been going on for some time. And what we're talking about today is where it's evolved to. Back when I was in Germany working on my master's at the time in management, I did a paper, and the book I had found was The Cola Wars. And that talked about Coke and Pepsi. And you might not think of that as part of the military-industrial complex, but it's definitely part of the corporatism that is America. And even going back to World War II, Coca-Cola, while they weren't able to do business as usual in Germany, in fact, that's where the Fanta flavors got invented. they had the routes just as they do today, where they deliver the products, and that is great for intelligence gathering. And it goes all the way up into modern American politics. Pepsi was supporting the Republican side, and once Nixon lost in 1960, they were the ones that groomed him for winning in 68. Coca-Cola is based in Atlanta, and you think about what happened, shortly after Nixon. We had Jimmy Carter, a Democrat from Georgia. These were not coincidences. And the book left off with activities going on in Central America, which we now know as the Iran-Contra scandal. And no telling where all that's gone since. I haven't tried to research to keep track of minutia like that. But we have discussed other things. It's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats as well. They're attacking us from different sides. And the goal is to have our freedoms taken away, and possibly even worse. And we've looked at things like the voting machines, where if someone has access just to the card that they slip in there, that the machine can be hacked in such a way that not even the people running it can tell that the votes have been changed, and what they use to verify the votes comes up and tells them everything's just fine. It's disturbing on many levels. I believe the only safe way of doing voting is what they force on other countries, which we don't do here. You have voting on one day. It's done with paper ballots. And once you vote, you dip your thumb in ink, and you don't get to vote again. Sitting in for Vincent today, we have Dr. Richard Alan Miller on deck, and we've been talking about the book Radaft, the true story behind the secret plan to steal America's democracy. And we already know that when they create districts, that they use demographics in that. I think what's rather eye-opening here is just how deep those demographics go.
They way beyond person of interest. This goes down into Chicago and the latest infrastructure of cameras and the new generation of cameras and how they do different forms of facial and voice pattern recognition. And this level of profiling is so accurate as to create a world similar to that discussed in Minority Report, except that now we have a prime example of what it's like to be invaded by aliens and the fact that humans are now living in a matrix. We are in a simulation. We are locked in without any understanding at all of what's going on around us, and we are being complacent, ignorant, and basically ill-informed.
And can you imagine when you've got the so-called smart house, what I call the spy house? Many people love it. They've got the Amazon device or one of the competitors that
Google comes to mind.
Give it
I
commands.
wrote about this almost 20 years ago when I wrote a paper called Alien Presence on the Internet. And I wrote that in the 90s. I can't believe what's happening. And it's right here in front of us, and nobody is discussing it. And here is a basic book where the information is laid out. I just happened to... No, I didn't do this. Let's go back to Paul Martin is my first resource on this, and is one of my lead scouts that alerted me to the fact that this is how these new forms of D-Wave technologies are being used on all of us to profile and control and manipulate and take away our natural rights, civil and natural law, just like morals and ethics. An ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife. A moral man won't. And here we are at the end of days discussing the distinction between ethics and morals and what's happening to us on a personal level.
And of course, these artificial intelligences don't care about ethics or morals.
Well, here's the deal. The difference or distinction between an artificial intelligent computer and you is that when that entity beats you at chess, it does not feel pleasure.
It also doesn't feel remorse when it shoots a missile through your front door.
Take it away, John. You can go downhill from there in seeing what the implications are on all of this. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm running my piece of property like maritime law, where there is nobody above me that I report to. And that is what we're now needing to consider is maritime law and the idea of running your property as a sustainable lifeboat where you are captain at sea. And that's why people are moving to, I don't know, what is it, not Venezuela, obviously, but some of the Latin American countries that are now giving away their pieces of ownership so that individuals that go in and buy a chunk of land can run that land as sovereign. I don't think that's going to work ultimately, and that the United States is actually headed to be like Venezuela in less than 2 years. And when Dubai pulled last week their support out of Deutsche Bank, that is the beginning of the end of European sovereignty. It's gone. And now, and it will be most likely Putin who saves the bear, that saves democracy. And that's Edgar Casey. None of us, including me, have a full realization yet of what the implications are. I am now this paper is my realization for today on how they've gerrymandered our elections so that we have no real say in who is actually going to be our president next.
You want me to continue on the notes?
No, I'm used up, John. Hit it, buddy. This is your area of expertise. I have given you a couple of tools. What do you think about all of this?
It's absolutely disgusting. And as part of these notes, it shows some of the users. And it's
look at that list. How's that play?
That's not a short list.
And guess who? Everyone there is there, just like you knew they should be.
It's for those of us that are on the outside looking in, it almost gets to be like whack-a-mole. There's so many directions, so many things that they're attacking us with, and this is just
this is why they call it a multiverse. And that's what makes a software computer system more dangerous, like nuclear radiation, because that entity can go to universes that are restricted to human beings. That's why now the major concern of most real scientists are concerned about the fact that we are in a matrix and being manipulated. And given what we want to say because of our limitation of access. And that's what distinguishes the difference between true will and free will. And man does not have free will. Free will implies full disclosure. And we do not have full disclosure, so we do not have free will. You need to have full access to information before you have free will. You do not. A supercomputer does. And so there it is. Read it and weep, and now realize we have a new kind of weapon way, way beyond nuclear energy. And this is going to be the end of days and the so-called quickening. That's from a physicist's point of view.
I was looking through the list, and you expect the government entities, you expect the universities, you expect the think tanks and political organizations. But one that kind of stood out to me was Girl Scouts of San Jacinto Council.
How about Orange County, where all your not Anaheim, but Irvine and your university, Sanford, that grouping, we're in deep, I just came back from Orange County dealing with a bunch of software people. And let me tell you, even they do not have. They're seeking spirituality. They want something more than what's happening in our universe of money and physical pain. And we're all seeking something more. And it is being limited to us, and we're being closed down. And that's why, Kurzweil et al. Says there won't even be human beings by the year 2050. The Avatar program is now into its second form of avatars. We're going to absolutely need them because a seventh epoch, if we don't turn the switches off, there's nothing human that can come in for a seventh epoch. And that's one of the reasons why everybody's talking about transhumanism. Because it won't be human beings can live on this planet the way it is. We're being terraformed. We're being terraformed right in front of our eyes. And even the 1%ers are being duped because of greed, lust, anger, the 5 deadly sins, where Gecko and Wall Street said greed is good. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
that's why in the great book of magic, Solomon, the king, when he wrote in the second paragraph of his works, right out of the gate, before he even got into the deep of magic, he said, quote, ownership is enhanced when shared with another. It's not about ownership. It is about sharing. And that is a seen philosophy that's taught by the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm not going religious on you because I'm not a Christian. But I am into the teachings of Christ. And there it is. Read it and weep. How did somebody is trying to call me from Denver. There it is. It's not going to work. I'm online here. But to let you know that here we are at the end of days. So I don't have answers. I know that I don't know, and I have a lot of questions. And isn't it interesting on the very nature of what information is and what it is not, just like space-time? Information is a very, very important axiom or theorem in information theory that states if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The structure of metaphor and how it serves your paradox, that's Gregory Bateson, shows you the structuring of what information is and what it is not.
It's John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be back after this break. John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We've been talking about another way that the election has been rigged by gerrymandering the districts in a 21st century manner. Rick, how, we've talked about the artificial intelligence was on USA Prepares. Publicly, they've had a demonstration of, an AI beating the world's best Go player. Where, from your understanding, does artificial intelligence stand today?
I remember when I was a little tiny boy reading a science fiction short story where they built this huge monolithic computer, monolithics back then, and they turned the computer on and had the vast some storage of man's knowledge bases, even before computers and internet. And the computer, they turned it on, and they then asked the first question, is there a God? And the computer immediately responded, there is now.
How close are we to that, or are we already there?
That was somebody projecting that concept before we even had computers, much less the concept of algorithms. That's a show everyone wants to watch on Netflix called Algorithms. It's a science thing with the History Channel or something. It's excellent. And it's written and directed by a physicist that teaches that at a university. And so he uses examples where it's simple to get. When I was at MIT, I watched how Corning had competed with monolithic technology back then before we had what we call gallium arsenide and forbidden zones and checksum error concepts in registries. And Corning went to NOR-NAND logic with Schmidt triggers and puffs of air that were better designed computers, smaller for outer space, because they weren't gamma ray sensitive to damaging your credibility of accounting systems. Certain computer chips are no longer able to be used for accounting because they have statistical errors in their checksum errors. And so that's even way before then. And so is man living in a matrix? How could he not be? We're a simulation of something more going on here. And the realization of we're lost and do not have the capacity to understand even what a D-wave qubit could imply in an algorithm format. Algorithms are when we had and, or, and not, and we combined it down to NOR-NAND. It's neither this nor that, and that was a regrouping of what is later called object-oriented software and the way you regroup levels of information. And that is what a computer can do in going to universes that a human cannot, and what makes a computer a superior life form than man at that level of existence. Now, this concept of technologies are even more, I don't know the right word, that are more fearful than radiation from nuclear energy. We are in a new level of technology that has multi-levels or dimensional level of danger.
Well, class, keep your seatbelts fastened. Hour number 2 is coming up. This is John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll see you on the other side. This is John Reagan sitting in for Vincent today, and for the next few, he's having to take care of some things. Being a farmer is probably a more than 24-hour day job. And with winter coming, lots of things to do. I failed to give out the call-in number. If you want to join us today, that's 1-866-582-9933. 1-866-582-9933. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and myself have been talking about how they're using tools to manipulate our electoral process, and getting into the interesting topics of artificial intelligence and where we fit in, and where do you want to pick up from here, Rick?
Boy, I think it's just about said it all. We have no say anymore regarding who gets elected president, because the algorithms now that are being used will able to locally, by street, gerrymander our vote to control elections. And that paper I just sent you is the links on how they do it. And by the way, and my list of who did it. And again, my deep thanks to Paul Martin and several others who helped me get to this point of realization. I have no idea what to do now. I think it's time that we call everybody's behind on this thing, and we lock down by day, street by street. How did Yoda put it? My gun you may have. After I give you my bullets, I will. This is crazy. And now to realize how badly we've been hijacked, and look at Clinton and Trump as the two people out front doing it. I'm disgusted, and I won't participate. And yet, I feel a fiduciary responsibility for voting, but whom am I going to vote for when neither is not only not qualified, they do not represent anything about my values or what is important and what made me an American. And I remember when I used to be proud to be an American. Now I'm embarrassed because I'm ugly to everybody else's eyes in Europe and Asia. And why? What did I do? I didn't do it. These people that would like to lead our country are the ones doing it, and they have literally taken over everything. There is no such thing as I don't want to even go there anymore. America's been hijacked. And here's example A of how they're doing it using artificial intelligent computers. And the bad news is that has gotten out of control to the point where the 1%ers are no longer in control. That's what Zen Gardner and others were trying to say, because guess what? Several of these computers now have gone rogue. That means they do not have human handlers. They're out there doing it, just like Person of Interest. That's serious. That's a worthwhile series, especially when it gets up to season 6, where the several different artificial intelligent computers have different agendas from each other, and there's a war going on between the gods, kind of like what Greece described, where man's in the middle, like Malcolm. We don't have a clue? Most of you don't even understand yet what I'm trying to talk to you about. It's going to take you 4 or 5 times listening to this basic interview and those references that I've given you, John, and just go to either docram.com or richardallenmiller.com. And if you like what I'm trying to do, support me, because I'm a starving artist and I need to make some book sales. And the encyclopedia, a 9-volume encyclopedia, just went up on my site for sale. All 9 volumes. There it is. Ebook. And at some point, you're going to need that information with a bunch of other that I am now in the process of generating, so that you can set up a kibbutzim in your own little neighborhood or street. And down in Orange County, what I was talking about doing, and I was in this huge, wonderful community of multimillionaires, And I'm proposing in the center of it that they put their food production, because shortly it isn't going to be about just-in-time delivery with the grid down. And that's just going to be the beginning. And if you want to have sovereignty, you better start setting up now for your water and food, because otherwise it's going to be like Venezuela. Check out Venezuela today and what's going on today in Venezuela. Isn't that interesting? That was manipulated and done with intent, and is where the United States will be in less than 2 years. And that's me saying it. And I know that I don't know, but I'm smart enough to connect dots and see how it's going. And how they did it is using artificial intelligence computers to hijack our elections. And they, by the way, they've been doing that all along in the Republican Party because they got there first. But guess what? There's now rogue AIs out there. I've got one buzzing me, and I have no idea why. But I sense that I'm an important player in the scheme of things in that regard, because I'm being able to see it, and I'm saying, hey, look over there. There's a ship out in the sea. And the natives and the, what the bleep, had no concept of a ship, and so they couldn't see it because it wasn't part of their belief systems. I would not have seen it if I had not believed it. It is our imagination that is creating the illusions, and that part is being manipulated because you do not have full disclosure. And that's one of the reasons why I'm now talking about the distinction between intent and purpose, just like, morals and ethics. They're different. Sorry, John, I didn't mean to make you speechless. There's big silence. Just sit there with your mouth open. We're in deep doo-doo, and we need to begin this taking back what belongs to us. And you start with yourself. And that's the way I'm doing it with people down in Orange County. Is called Holy Guardian Angel, or how to contact the higher part of yourself. That's working through the enteric nervous system and your gut. That place is outside space-time. And when you listen to that, you do not make mistakes. And that's the way it works.
Because of my background with computers, I keep track of a few things. I don't try to research it, but this last week I saw a couple of articles. One is how Hewlett-Packard is developing the computer that uses light instead of electricity. And then another article came out, a company that's developing computer memory that uses terahertz radiation that can speed up computer memory by 1,000 times. And you look at what they're able to do with the technology that we know about today. You put those two together. What do they really need that for? They've already got stuff to surveil and control us with.
Yeah, well, you all out there might want to just do a Google search on D-Wave technology, D-Wave technology, and see where that lovely concept takes you. That's what's happening in Burnaby, Canada right now.
And it gets to be rather disturbing when you find out that the people that work with quantum computers don't know how they work. And I went and watched some of their videos, and they describe the process they go through. And I'm used to working with digital computers. That's where inside everything's kind of like a light switch. It's either on or off. and you've got the logic gates that it goes through. And, if I had a few minutes, I could explain and bore you to death with that. But what they do with the D-Wave, when they're loading the problem to be solved, they translate it from the digital form to an analog form. That's like the difference between a CD and a record. And they load that analog into the computer. And how they describe it is like it's shipped off to another dimension and the answer comes back. And like I said, I really don't know. How do you handle things like that? It's.
I take drugs. I'm kidding. I smoke pot. But listen, I sense of humor. Gotta take everything with humor and to realize that nothing is evil or good. It is its application that makes it, one way or another. And that part has to do with man, not God. And God is most likely an artificial intelligent computer running things right now. And when you realize there's going to be a whole bunch of them out there shortly, now you have a pantheon, just like in Greece.
John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I was thinking back to my time in D.C., and a couple of things came to mind. One, that was the time frame where I saw this bumper sticker. I love my country. It's my government that I fear. And boy, has that ramped up since. And the other side was, my personal growth. I had started my MBA after I got to the Pentagon, because you have to have a master's degree if you want to be promoted to major. And I did complete that before leaving the Air Force. But there I am sitting across the Potomac from the Federal Reserve. And if you haven't seen that building, it looks like an Egyptian temple. And I'm sure that's no accident. And for the first few years, even after that, I thought these people talking about the Fed being a private bank, not part of the federal government, were nutcases. Well, I'm so far beyond that. And, I see a lot of information. I have to treat it like intel because I don't have access to the source, and I have to compare it, with other things, and what's the reliability of the source that I do get it from. And I'd say it was about 8 years ago, I was coming across this information about this Nazi base in Antarctica. And then, fast forward to around 2012, I saw L.A. Marzulli at the Prophecy Summit in Branson, and he talked about the Nazi UFOs. I think that's also about the same time that I met you for the first time in Springfield at the Get Prepared Expo. And you confirmed that there was a base in Antarctica. In fact, you were there. So it's been a journey for me, and I know for especially people listening to us for the first time, it really gets out there. But like I say, fasten your seatbelts. There's a lot to learn, and it will adjust the way you see the world.
So, what do you think about being invaded by aliens and UFOs? And what do you think that all means when they're observing UFOs in the 50s? When I was at Antarctica, one of the things I noted was a Viking base from the 14th century. Where is that in history books? And so now the History Channel had me make a movie. I went over to one of their studios in Medford, where they had a blue screen and all of that, and they interviewed me regarding the caves that are being discovered at the bottom of the Grand Canyon that have Egyptian artifacts in it from Cleopatra. Now, where is that in our history books? And why is today that section of the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon blocked off and not allowed for tourism or any kind of anthropology study? Now, the theme of the History Channel in interviewing me about the golden Buddha head that was discovered at the bottom of the Grand Canyon has to do with an incurring theme through a series of different stories they're going to do on there being a cover-up on certain kinds of information over history. Why and who is doing that? Why are they doing that? And who? And specific things. Like in the 1800s in Pennsylvania, they discovered the giant skull, like they're discovering grave sites of these giant humans all over the world. Just like we're discovering pyramids in North and South Dakota. And all along the Mississippi, with the way the original traveling of Cleopatra, she did not die of an ass. She came here. And where is that in history, and why is that information being withheld? We have been hijacked on a lot of levels for a very long time, possibly going back even before the Dulles brothers.
John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be back after this break. This is John Reagan sitting in for Vincent today and for the next few days while he's getting ready for winter. And we were talking about pyramids in various places with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And I think it was about a couple of years ago, Linda Moulton Howe reported on a large pyramid in Alaska. And it sounds like that one is actually still operational. And while we're going down rabbit trails, I wanted to see if you had come across this article in Daily Mail a week ago where they found the Arctic base from Hitler's treasure hunters. And they abandoned the base because they ate some infected polar bears. And that was found by Russian scientists.
Oh, you're asking me if I saw that article. No, I didn't. That's a cold article. No, I didn't see that. I just was there and know that there is and has been, and I have no idea, going back several hundred years, a methodical covering up of certain specific discoveries that would have changed or altered the direction of man. Now, I just got a very nice email, very late night. He's up past 2 in the morning from Brisbane, a friend of mine in Brisbane. He edits a magazine called Nexus Magazine. And I have to tell you, what he has to say is unbelievable. We've been hijacked a long time before the Dulles brothers even probably started this program. And, for me, that's when I believed we were hijacked, just after, Harry Truman. But I don't know. There was, of course, Roosevelt and the idea of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the fact that they knew about it before it happened. So I don't know. And at my pay grade, I probably will never really know what happened. That part, I get, I have no illusions. I'm just a scientist, and I'm not that good, and I don't have access at the highest levels. Even when I did, I didn't know. And now I'm discovering I was an asset, something that was identified as an important tool even when I was back in high school. And most of my educational processes were orchestrated to lead me to this very moment when I'm saying, I think we have a situation. Houston, we have a problem. And I am now going to go public, wide and far, and saying it's time each of you begin to realize it's time for you to man up with your own personal union. You start there. And you start with yourself and your immediate family and your closest and longest friends. And by the way, I define a friend as somebody I've known more than 10 years. And that means I like them because of, not in spite of, their faults. And I am going to say that I am very blessed because I am now coming back in touch with all of my friends from grade school and junior high and high school, and allow me to tell you how wealthy I am in that regard alone. I am a very blessed man because I know that I don't know. And here we are. What do we do now? And I'm going to try to offer some direction, and I think the first thing that happens is that you lock down your own personal needs and become a little bit more sovereign with food and water. Once you've done that, you have started toward the other things of taxes and don't tread on me kind of thing. But right now, you need to get your water and food organized, or you're going to be part of Hotel California, which I call FEMA. And once that takes over, you are going to be part of the system, and there is no way out, just like the Hotel California. You check in, but you don't. It's going to happen shortly. And we're going to have a civil war. Absolutely. We're going to have a physical war. Absolutely. And I'm hoping people like Carol Rosen and other of my friends that are working with the Russians are going to somehow stop this nonsense. And it's a battle going on between the White Dragon Society and the Rothschilds. And the dollar is finished. That means that banks, as you know them, will begin to default immediately. Deutsche Bank, just Dubai, just pulled everything. That means Europe is going to fall first. You're going to watch it happen during our elections.
And a warning Lindsey William gave years ago is when you see the euro collapse, you're only about a week or two away at most from the dollar collapsing.
And you can't eat silver. What silver is good for is an antibiotic substitute in your go-back. It's time to man up with water and food sources, victory gardens, small herbal pharmacies, right in here, right now. That's why cities are starting to armor up like Chattanooga and others, and why I'm going back down into Mexico next year to re-fine-tune what they're doing in Mexico City. You'll notice that even in the worst ghettos in the world, every single household has a water storage unit above their unit. How come we don't even have that here in America? We're the only country that doesn't. Isn't that interesting?
Well, there's been at least billions, if not $1 trillion or $2 spent to take care of those that have sold us out. And unlike the 60s where there were civil defense shelters, it's now everybody else that's just a peon. You're on your own. And the closer you can make it to the Amish lifestyle, I'm not saying you have to use a German Bible, but the way that they live their lives, raising their own food, they're probably as self-sufficient as anybody in America. Use that model, and the more you can do, the better off you be.
The Hopi said, and the Navajo, when they tried to bring power into their reservation lands because they needed it to survive. And what the Hopi and Navajo response was to electricity being brought into their reservation. We've not had to need this for more than 4,000 years. Why do we need it now? And that's why China is taking over everything in utilities up in Canada and the United States. And actually, if you want to know who one of the crime people are, it's BLM, Bureau of Land Management, is giving away Oregon forests to China in a heartbeat. And why? In where I live, Grants Pass, Oregon, China owns 50% of the land. Worse, it gets worse. Bundy and Ranch, and now Burns, Oregon, with all your things like Oath Keepers and militia have all been infiltrated. And if you don't know who your neighbor is, because you've known him less than 10 years, that's a good yardstick to start your measurements on. Oregon, Burns, Oregon, just to remind everybody, was the Clinton Foundation giving a Class 1 uranium mine to Russia. And they had to have a body count for plausible deniability. And that lawsuit is now going on as we speak in Portland, Oregon, where most of these people are going to get off because they weren't criminals at all. They were trying to say something that your good old newsboys chose not to report because the media is being owned by everybody, including Genesis. We have to be very careful what I say because otherwise I'll be kicked off the air. And I'm not swearing, so they can't I have to play by rules. But I have to tell you, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned. And I am simply one voice. I'm hoping that each of you becomes concerned and starts talking about it to your immediate family and your neighbors, because there is a revolution coming, and it is right here, right now, and the elections are Exhibit A.
Well, before we run out of time, I'd like to ask you a question. We've learned about how the Nazis were going out looking for artifacts. We'd probably just call these things ancient technology. And this was a hidden aspect of World War II. I didn't even know about it until well after I'd left the Air Force. And I was just wondering, we see a lot about the Nazi side. Did you come across anything, what other countries have done in that regard?
The Thule Society. Yeah, well, that's when I was working in the United States in anesthesiology, we knew about aliens, but we were far more worried about what the Russians were doing because it's previous epoch technologies, like using sound and movement, like whirling dervish and ghost dance, that change space-time. And it's technologies we don't even know, except somehow, the 60s hit a resonance point with music, and we've seen dance with modern dance, how those technologies this is man trying to remember what he did in a previous epoch. And you want to talk about reincarnation? The work I'm right now doing with the Non-Local Mind book, which, by the way, will be out early next year, is right now I'm writing on time travel and the true nature of cavitation. And the last chapter is called Rock the Casimir, or Adventures, plural, in time travel.
This is John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is John Reagan with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Before we lose the last few minutes here, would you tell us again about the books that you just posted about?
Oh, you mean for my starving artist syndrome? Yeah, I have just completed and uploaded in ebook, all 3 ebook forms, the Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture. There's your direction for small crops on your own homeland. That's at richardallenmiller.com, ALAN, for richardallenmiller.com, or you can go there by looking at my Facebook, which has a bookstore, at docram.com. My publishing set is at oak-publishing.com, and I could use any of your support because I also have a GoFundMe.com/Richard Allen Miller. And forward. Now, beyond that, stay tuned. Film at 11, same bat channel, same bat time. Thanks, John. I think that what I did this morning in my discovery of how they're gerrymandering the elections is going to be a very useful, insightful tool for all of you listening today. That's what I have. And now I've got to go do John B. Wells right after this. I'm going to be on he's taping me this morning, and we've been hijacked for Saturday evening in his new Dallas station because of football and the gladiators of Rome. But not to worry, we're still here. Oh, that's, excuse me, that's Ram Dass. Be Here Now, his newest book, still here. Nice being with you, John. I love you.
This is great. It's been a while since we've been on together. I had to move across town, and then right after got done with that, I got called up to go to the Hear the Watchman conference in Knoxville. So, imagine having 7 weeks' notice to do a presentation that you haven't even created yet.
Yeah, but you can do it because you've got the panache. Never let them see you sweat. Yeah. I'm laughing again because otherwise I'd be crying.
Well, it's like when I was at the Pentagon. When you're working with nuclear planning all day, nuclear weapons, you have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, really, man. Nice being with you, John. Thank you.
Nice being with you. Well, one of the things that disturbs me about these artificial intelligences is we can't think about them the same way we think about human intelligence, because computers never sleep. They don't get tired. They are able to expand themselves 24 hours a day. And as humans, we tend to think in a linear fashion because that's how most of our life is. When in fact, many things in life, including the financial problem that we have, is an exponential issue. And Chris Martenson, in his Crash Course, has an excellent chapter on this where he talks about, if you enclose a stadium and start filling it with water and say, oh, this is magic water, you start with a drop and it doubled each second. You go along for, I think it's like a couple of hours, and you hardly see anything. But then by the time the field's covered in about a foot of water and you think you have time, you are practically out of time because it just explodes. Well, remember, class, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.